Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to everybody. I hope you're all well. I'm very sorry about the slight delay here. We're just having some technical issues with Nicky, who's joining us hopefully very shortly. So actually, I've just got another message from him. So we might be a little bit more delayed, but I thought I'd make a start anyway, rather than just keep you guys hanging. But bear with me, because I'm reading an email from Nicky right now. And replying. This is fun for you guys to watch. Me doing tech support. So let's send him the link again and see if this one works better, because he's having a little difficulty getting in. Well, we got stuff to talk about, even if he can't make it in to join us, but I think he probably will. So bear with me just for a couple more minutes, and I will get this underway for you. How is everybody, by the way? Feel free to chuck your comments in and any questions you've got. And thank you for the comment about the t-shirt, Ariana. I'll explain the t-shirt in just a minute. But I don't want to be proof of the fact that guys can't multitask, so bear with me. Oops. All right, let's see how that goes. So, my friends, good evening. Welcome back to Food for Thought Live. And the t-shirt, by the way, DAH stands for Devon Against Hunting. Devon, believe it or not, is the county in England with the most hunts. Fox hunting, stag hunting, hare hunting. It's just disgraceful. And the guys at Devon Against Hunting very kindly sent me this t-shirt some time ago. And I wear it very proudly because I stand with them against hunting. And not just in Devon, of course, across the entire nation and the world, in fact. But speaking of hunting, while we're waiting for our guest this evening, one of the ways that I know Nicky is through the anti-hunting protest marches. So that's one of the many causes that he stands up for, the issues that he fights against, and he's tireless in his efforts. So I really hope he can join us. He's just having a little bit of computer trouble at his end with StreamYard, which StreamYard, by the way, is I recommend it highly. Despite this, I would. Just in case anyone's not aware, because you guys won't see it, you'll be seeing, I always do that, don't I? You'll see the Food for Thought thing, and then down there, our little Food for Thought logo, because of the fact we've got a professional account, as it were, with StreamYard. What StreamYard is, though, is a platform that allows you to stream live to platforms such as Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and you can do so simultaneously depending on the level of account you purchase from them. There's also a free version, and the reason why we started this, and you guys who may have caught the very first attempt that we had with this, was myself and Giles chatting just to test it, and that was a very successful test, as you will have seen if you were watching, and that was the free version. The only difference with the free version is that you can't stream to two platforms simultaneously, which is what I'm doing right now, streaming to Facebook and to YouTube simultaneously. And also you can brand it with your own branding, hence the Food for Thought stuff. So I recommend StreamYard, despite the fact that we're currently having a little bit of difficulty getting Nicky to join us with it. Don't tell him I said so, but I suspect that's something to do with an old computer rather than StreamYard. But we'll see. He's trying now, and and as I said before, when we were struggling with Philip Limbury with the connection that we had there that evening from the Compassionate World Farming, and as I said, when we weren't sure if Laureen from Action for Rhinos could make it, we will absolutely reschedule this. And have Nicky on at some point if he can't join us this evening. But I can tell you he's attempting to get on board right now. So while he's doing that, there's a couple of things I want to say. which, as you know, is always the way that I start these things anyhow. So while I'm saying these things, perhaps Nicky will join us and we'll be able to carry on as normal. But there's something I really want to talk about, something very controversial and very important, very topical and very current. And that is, I'll just say this. I don't care what race, religion, cause, or anything else you are from or stand for or fight for. The moment you throw a bike at a horse, or indeed subject any animal to violence, or anyone to violence, you immediately lose any respect I may have previously had for you. Immediately. And incidentally, while I don't want to politicize this channel, this conversation, and I never will, I'll just say for the record that if you do that, you absolutely distract from and therefore disrespect the cause that you're supposedly standing up for in the first place, which is really indicative of the fact that you're not standing for any cause at all. You're just looking for trouble. And that's disgusting. I understand anger. I understand the craziness of the world right now. I think people are very frustrated, a lot of pent up aggression and frustration because of the lockdown, and a lot of very serious issues happening all over the world, which have my wholehearted support in terms of the stand against the oppression that exists. But the moment you subject an animal to violence or a person to violence, that's game over for me. And I saw the news yesterday with the pictures, the images, the video of the horse being basically attacked with missiles, including a bike, by protesters, hooligans. I cannot tell you how much that disgusts me. And just give me a sec, because there's a message from Nicky. Yeah, he's just trying to he's still trying to join us. He's a legend. What a guy. He's trying his best, and we'll hope that he joins us. I'm hoping he'll pop up on my little my production view of this broadcast any moment now, and we'll bring him on in, and it'll be wonderful to see him. But back to that point I was making about the horse that was subjected to abuse yesterday. The horse shouldn't have been there in the first place. This is one of the issues that I have with the way that animals are exploited so commonly. It's so deeply ingrained in society that it's okay to ride horses. It's okay to the horse racing industry. The fact that police use horses in riot control, crowd control. You see them at football matches where they're expecting violence. Is just indicative of the fact that we have gone so far wrong that that's thought of as okay. I think that's just disgraceful. I think it's absolutely disgraceful. Horses are flight animals by nature. We've heard from Jackie Howe from the Springwood Sanctuary, who has made it her life to look after horses. To put them in that situation, I don't care how well trained they are, I don't care how big and strong they are, and I don't care how much they are capable of adhering. Hold on a sec, hold on. No, let me just quickly respond to Nicky, because I don't want him to worry about this, because we can get through this, and we will. But he's still trying to join us. I think he's going to succeed. It's going to be wonderful to see him. So yeah, I just wanted to share that I think, as I said, it's important to me. There's a number of things about this series that are very important to me, such as it will never be a blatant fundraising attempt. Of course, there's opportunities for us all to contribute. There's photographs that we can buy. There's causes we can contribute to. There's donations that can be made. There's campaigns that we can get behind. But there's lots of other things we can do too, as we've seen all along. There's petitions we can sign. There's people we can follow, give our support to. There's letters we can write. There's all kinds of support we can give. And I've always said that I don't want this to become a fundraising exercise, because you guys rightly would then probably tune out, because we've all got finite resources, especially now. The other thing I never want to do is politicize this. I never want to talk about political views. I never want to talk about the crazy world we live in right now, where there's plenty of subject matter to talk about, let's be honest. And we're about to, I think Nicky's about to join us, actually. He said he thinks he's in. And, you know, one of the things we'll talk about with Nicky is, as you guys will know, he's one of the two hosts of the BBC Radio 5 Live breakfast program. So his job entails knowing, and not just knowing, but telling us the news. If you listen to the news, I personally don't, but this is his gig. Ah, hey, there he is. Hey, Mr. Nicky Campbell. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm so sorry about that.
No, don't apologize. It's so wonderful to see you, and we're live, and we were just chatting anyway and saying how adorable it is of you to go to all this trouble you're a legend. Thank you, my friend.
Well, I tell you, Dan, I was so embarrassed.
Don't be.
Because I had the link and I didn't have, listen, this is so boring. It's so techy, isn't it? I had Chrome and then I had to download Chrome and I had to make it my default, and then I made it my default, but then I couldn't remember my password because I had to go in and but we're there. We got it.
Listen, you know, the thing is that I think this is one of the best things about a live broadcast, is that it's real. You guys now know this is real. This isn't recorded. This is real. We're live, and it's wonderful. And everyone's so happy to see you. There's comments flooding in already saying hello. They lovely to see you, and they adore you. And
it's my family, is it?
How are you, my friend?
I'm all right. Yeah, this is great doing this. I'm just seeing if you. There he is on the floor.
The boy, there's Maxwell.
There's the boy.
Happy birthday, belatedly, young Maxwell.
Yeah, 12. Maxwell. Look.
We're live, Maxwell.
We're on the telly. There you go. What a boy, eh?
What a boy. So Maxwell's just celebrated his 12th birthday last month, right?
Yeah. The strangest thing that happened yesterday, because he hasn't chased the ball for a long time, because he's geriatric. He's getting quite old, and he's quite.
Of course. Yeah.
He's got the old going on, the old arthritis. And we were in the park yesterday, and there was these 3 young dogs running for. This woman had one of those ball throwers, right? She was going, and he suddenly took it upon himself to join in, and he became became a puppy again. Started just chasing him and everything like that, and he did. It was like rejuvenation, and he was sprinting and beating into the ball, because in his day, Labradors are quick, they're fast, and then when he got home after the walk, he was like, "Oh,"
and he's still sleeping now from his run yesterday.
That's right, yeah.
Oh, well, it's so lovely to see him. And look, I wanted to share this as well. Look at this, guys. Hold on a sec. Let me share something beautiful with you. If you didn't see my promo for this conversation with our wonderful friend Nicky, check that out.
Whoa!
What a beautiful picture.
Yeah.
Beautiful picture.
They're so emotionally eloquent, aren't they? Just on a different level. Just escaping from that ordinariness of into a different dimension, into a different realm.
No, absolutely.
It's so special, isn't it? To imagine, imagine being the sort of person who doesn't love animals. How can anyone not love animals? And when you have a companion, a cat or a dog, you're given a glimpse of the wild, aren't you? They're a kind of mediator between us and the wild. They're our domestic friends, but there's so many elements of the wild, and you get a little fleeting glimpse of the magic and of something greater. And the privilege, to have him trust me and be my friend. It's such a privilege for an animal to befriend you on a level and to have you as their friend. I think privilege is the only word for it, isn't it?
I think you're absolutely right, and I love that you think that way. And actually, one of the things I don't think you and I have talked about is I have the privilege of a wild animal that's been coming to visit me lately. You may have seen, but you may not, because I know you're a busy man.
Well, I saw your mice babies.
Oh man,
I know.
Yeah, the mice babies.
I know.
Oh, that hurt so bad. Yeah, that really hurt. That was That was an incredible, so actually what a great example of what you just talked about with regards to the privilege, because that felt like such a privilege, such an honor. That affected me so deeply. And those little tiny mice who together literally when they were curled up together were the size of a 2p piece, who were in my life for 24 hours. And I think we're only in this world for 4 or 5 days, according to the experts. They touched me so deeply. And the way I described them in the email saying goodbye to them was that they were giants. To me, they were giants. What an absolute privilege it was to have those little babies in my life. They were the most gigantic spiritual beings, ancient souls. So it was just an incredible privilege. So yes, I agree with you. Whether it's a dog, whether it's mice, and whether it's I heard you talk about something so eloquently. You put something so beautifully years ago, the Global March for Rhinos and Elephants, and you said the same thing about an elephant. You said you've never touched an elephant, but elephants have touched you. It's that, and it's whether it's the tiniest mouse or the largest creature on land. The privilege of it is incredible.
I love what Daphne Sheldrick of the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, I love what she said about elephants when she said they're like us except better.
Yeah, she got that right. That's beautiful. Beautiful.
I had a real incident with him once. And we were on a highland track, and this is one of those magical encounters that just take you out of this world and beyond this world into that wonderful realm, I think, which as a species we used to know much better, but we've clouded it all out with the noise and the hubbub of kind of modernity and superficiality. Anyway, we're on a highland road, and the two of us were walking. The sea was to our left, washing in on the shore, and we were up a hill slightly. And then at the crook of the turn at the top, I saw a figure, and I thought, what's that? And he saw it as well, and he took his instincts. He just took off towards it and ran. It must have been about 250 yards away from us. And he got towards it, and I realized it was an otter. And it was waiting for him. And I thought, oh, God, he's going to have his eyes out. I thought, this is going to be horrendous. And so I sort of moved up, and the otter's waiting for him. And he got just up to the otter, within 2 yards of the otter, and they both stopped. And the otter was waiting for him, and they both stopped. And they both leant forward and sniffed each other like that. And then he leant back, and the otter slowly turned and went over the brow of the hill, through the heather, down through the rocks, and slipped away into the sea. And it's one of those things that I thought, if I'd had a phone or recorded it or whatever, it would have been one of those things you'd never have believed. And I got home, I told Tina about it when I got back, and it's just one of those moments. It's one of the most incredible moments of my life.
Isn't it profound how animals can affect us so deeply, so profoundly, so completely that you'll speak about that for the rest of your life. You'll always talk about that as being one of the most memorable moments, and likewise for me, and likewise for all animal lovers. It's just so significant when we just get out of our own way and let it happen. I think that's the key. I think that's where people have lost their way. And actually, before you joined us, I was talking about the fact that I'm never going to politicize this channel. I'm never going to talk about my political views or beliefs, but I had to say something about the scenes I saw yesterday where the horse came under attack.
Oh.
And I don't care what race, religion, cause, or anything else you have or you stand for or fight for. I cannot abide that, and instantaneously you lose any respect that I might have had for you at some time. And second of all, and perhaps much more importantly, you not just distract from, but totally disrespect the cause you're supposed to be standing for by doing a thing like that, because that's just disgraceful. And what I was actually getting to, and it was amazing timing, because I just literally started to talk about the fact that you, obviously, as part of your work, you're privy to all of this, and you're the guy that's telling a lot of people what the news is. And there must be times that you see it or hear it, and you think, "Oh my my God. And that yesterday, I imagine, was one of those examples.
It was. And the thing, because I work for the BBC, there are certain places I can't go when it comes to impartiality. I mean, things I can't. Trophy hunting's on the edge. You see, at the moment, it's moving. Right. I've crossed that line, but because of BBC impartiality, I've certainly crossed the line on the air. But trophy hunting is, at the moment, technically a legal activity. It's like fox hunting. I can't really speak about fox hunting in public. I can't speak about the badger culling, but I can't state an opinion. I can do an interview whereby I can press opinions and I can explore opinions, but I'm not really allowed to. So I never tend to tweet on that stuff. I might occasionally like a tweet or say, well, this is it. This Dominic Dyer tweet. This is interesting. But I can't say, yeah. But then something like ivories or rhino horn's completely different. Yeah. Because it's illegal. And so I'm able to do that. And there's lots of stuff that I would love to say and love to do. Sometimes we're prisoners of our own culture with people. I have a friend, an old school friend, who goes fox hunting. I mean, it's a problem. So it's difficult for us. He's an animal lover. He's horrified by. I had a conversation with him about trophy. Horrified by it. He's a dog lover and everything. But there's some people have blind spots, and when there's much about him that is incredible. We're old friends. As much about it is incredibly attractive. I've made my views known, in private, and he kind of says, "Yeah, okay," and we just have to park it. But people are sometimes. I can't imagine you sitting down and having lunch with him, Dan. But I've known him for so long, So it is difficult, really difficult sometimes. But on that particular impartiality issue, once I interviewed a trophy hunter, and I pushed him and pushed him and pushed him. I was kind of rude, and because when I'm interviewing these people, I feel so strongly about it. I churn up inside, and sometimes you're a little bit like the swan on the surface, and underneath it's under that, and you've just got to stay calm. You've just got to stay calm. But because I'd really like to do, I used to find that a lot with the big questions, with a debate program on a Sunday morning used to do. I just wanted to scream at people, but you just got to be kind of zen and professional about it, because that's your job. And I remember I said to this trophy hunter, honestly, what is more beautiful? A pride of lions at a watering hole at sunset, or a lion's head on your wall? And he said, both. I tell you, I mean, it's quite interesting exploring that mentality. I wanted to rip his head off and put it on the wall, but of course he was on the phone. But there's at times like that I just want to just let loose. So you've got to let loose with a tone of voice or with a silence. So just going, which is just in an interview, which is more beautiful, a head on the wall or by the water hole? And he goes, both. And if you just go, okay, listen, thanks very much for joining. That's enough. I mean, in radio terms, that's like an atomic bomb. Yeah, length of silence. Yeah, you can say things in different ways. And you're absolutely right. I think probably more powerful than any words you could utter at that time in response. And what do you think it is, Nicky? You just put it so beautifully, talking about the privilege of your wonderful friend behind you on the floor there, and any animal that we have a relationship with, that we have the honor and privilege of them spending time in our company, in our presence, and allowing us time in their presence, which is how I feel about it. How do you think, because as you just said it yourself, it's a fascinating mentality to explore, and goodness me, wouldn't it be a valuable mentality to get to the bottom of, if you could find the key and turn it to stop that from happening. But what do you think it is that causes such disparity between the us and the them? And I hate to say that, because that's just acknowledging the separation, but let's face it, in terms of this particular viewpoint, we couldn't be further apart between those people who think there's beauty in having
a lion's head on their wall in equal measure to a lion with its family at a watering hole. How do you explain that disconnect between us and them?
It's kind of culture and its upbringing, and it's seeing animals as commodities, as pieces of furniture. It's the same deal. It's the same mentality that dresses animals up in clothes and puts them on motorbikes and makes them dance and makes elephants dance. And every time you see one of those pictures, a little part of me, dies inside. And I just think I can't. It's a mentality. It's very, very difficult to get your head around it. We are part of the most beautiful world, which we're obviously systematically destroying. But the variety of life on Earth, the forms of life on Earth, are just the great evolutionary biologist Ken Miller, when speaking about, he's a Christian as well, and when speaking about that kind of monotheistic thing about man having dominion over the earth and the sort of discounting animals as not having souls and everything like that, he said there's a whole lot of people looking for God in the wrong places. And he was, he's a Christian. I'm not, but he's a Christian. He's a very fine evolutionary biologist. But you know what the mentality is? I've been to Africa, but never to the bush, and never on safari. I've never seen the animals, but I've been there to work in different places. But can you imagine if you're kind of on safari in the bush or whatever, and an elephant comes out, and you have that moment of absolute clarity. Something happens. You just have a clear. You're taken and transported to some higher realm, and you make eye contact with the elephant, and you're in his world.
Yeah.
You're in her world, as Philip Larkin put it. That unobtrusive world. All he wants from life is to stay alive and to live his beautiful life. And you see it, you see him, and you're savoring that moment, and your entire body is tingling and your heart is swelling. So what do? You pull out an assault rifle and you shoot him. What? How can you explain that?
It would be the greatest, strongest desire I have in my life would be to find that wiring, to find what it is that makes that possible for somebody. Oh, there's a photograph I have on my phone. I don't have it on my computer, otherwise I'd share it on the screen. But it's amazing you talking about this, because it reminds me of a moment I had in Kenya, Meru National Park, which is of course where Born Free essentially comes from, with Elsa the lion's grave is there, and I had all these this camera gear behind me. I must have had about between myself and Margot Raggett, who creates Remembering Wildlife, we were in the vehicle with probably about 50 grand's worth of camera gear, and we came across this lone elephant who was just there. I've seen herds of elephant families together, and it's incredible, and you click away and take as many photographs as you can, and obviously you want to spend time with them as well and not just see them through the viewfinder. In this particular case, and I don't know what it was, but it just affected me very deeply and very profoundly instantly, and I just put all my camera gear down, and the only photograph I took was a selfie with my phone. I kind of which is the one I'm looking for. And as Margot, who I'm very happy to say will be a guest on this show in early July, will attest, I spent about, I think it was probably about 5 minutes, but it felt like about 5 years just connected with this elephant, who just stood, and then he came, kind of halved the distance between us and him, which probably put him about 15 or 20 feet away. He was close enough I could feel the heat of his body, and I could hear him breathe. And when he eventually walked off, I just burst into tears like a child, because I was so deeply affected by it, just because of the fact. And I remember posting it on social media at the time to say that it was probably, along with meeting Sudan, with releasing King into Shamwari, that was the most profound and very, very, with meeting Sudan, the last male of his species, with the release of King, these are very, very significant experiences where you could say, oh yeah, that would make sense. That's going to be very significant in your life. But this was just an elephant that we came across on one particular day for no particular reason. I just felt this connection, and it brought me to tears, It was the most beautiful thing. And as you said, what happens in a person's life, upbringing, conditioning, their response to that is to maybe momentarily appreciate the beauty, but then
it's a different type of thing. They're not appreciating the beauty, though, are they? They're appreciating something else. They're seeing kind of the shape and form of the animal, but greater for them is the conquest. I think there's something about the conquest. It's the power of killing.
Yeah.
I remember A.A. Gill, the writer, who was a very good, funny writer, but he once shot. He's dead now. A.A. Gill. He was a brilliant writer, but he once one of his columns said that he shot a baboon to see what it would be like to kill a human. And that's a certain kind of mentality, isn't it? It's very difficult to know where it comes from. See, I'd like to think that having dogs and cats and domestic animals, would lead us to more empathy towards wild animals. I think that's very often the case, but sometimes it doesn't seem to be at all. Sometimes people don't see the connection between the vestiges of the wild that I see from him. You know, he's still the wild. I can see the wild dog, if you know what you're talking about. You know, if you've read the books. And I can see the wild dog, and I can see the wolf, and I can see all that stuff, and he's leading me there, and he's giving me glimpses, giving me clues to what it's out there. And I think, it's he's part of a continuum. But cats are just tigers, aren't they? Cats are just little tigers.
Yeah. And
I don't see how people don't make the connection. Some people don't make the connection. I've got this thing. I'm going to get. I feel I'm on a bit of a guilt trip. I've got 2 West Highland Terriers, and I didn't have a dog for 35 years because I had a dog when I was growing up, which was what you used to call a mongrel. And we had it from the age of when I was adopted, actually, until 11, and it died. I came from school one day, and Mum said that he had to be put down, put to sleep, as she put it. And it's with me every day, that moment.
Yeah.
But he was we got a Labrador Retriever, and we got 2 West Highland Terriers, and I'm on they're gorgeous dogs, they're wonderful dogs. I've got a mother and a daughter. We had puppies here. But I'm on this real thing now about rescue dogs, and going into the future. And I want to, I do feel a bit, there's so many dogs to save, and we shouldn't be doing that. I wouldn't change it for the world, my dogs now, but I'm on we're all on a journey. We're all on a journey. Mm.
Of course, and that's a huge part of I think the power of having these kinds of conversations is I think that it's really important. While we're so passionate about it, while we're so adamant that things have to change, we understand that it's step by step, and that you can't, like you said, you have a friend who he's pro fox hunting. You're faced with a choice in life. You either utterly alienate yourself from everybody whose views happen to be in opposition to yours, or you accept that everyone's journey is different. Mm. And by the way, guys, you guys watching this, if you prior to this conversation only knew Nicky as our beloved broadcaster on TV and radio, now you understand why he's on this live broadcast talking about animal conservation. I mean, what beautiful views you've got, and God, I wish everyone thought the same way as you. It's I'm interested to know, have you ever in your work, when something you become aware, you've talked about trophy hunting, you've mentioned Dom Dyer. I've got a couple of connections to make with that a little bit later on, but what I'm interested to know is, have you ever become aware of a particular issue, a particular thing that's happening, such as trophy hunting, but probably not that example, where it's literally coming across it in the course of your work that has led you to actively partake in the fight against it? Was it?
Well, it's pretty relentless, isn't it? Can you hear me all right? I think my microphone's gone.
I can hear you beautifully.
Good. It's pretty relentless. Sometimes I come in the morning and I go through the papers, and when I'm working on the breakfast program on 5 Live, and your heart's broken before you've even opened the microphone, because you've seen, the second biggest country of deforestation is the DRC. And you think, oh my God, we don't even know how many bonobos there are. We're destroying that incredibly close link to ourselves. We don't even know how many there are. They're going to be around in 30 years, And then you see this is happening and that's happening. And you've got to really pick yourself up. You've got to find a wall. You've got to find a wall of strength. Otherwise your heart gets broken. And I was talking to Ricky Gervais about this just the other day, because I'm starting a podcast. It's going to start going out from this week or next week, called One of the Family, which is basically about dogs and talking to people and speaking to. I've spoken to a couple of cognitive canine cognitive experts. I find that stuff so fascinating. To be a dog, to what they call it, the Umwelt, the animal perception of how they see the world, how they think of the world. I find that just so interesting.
Yeah.
And I was speaking to Ricky, because I've done Ricky for one of the programs. He's going to be in one of the programs.
Right.
And I asked him one about cats and dogs. And my premise was it'll go out in about 4 or 5 weeks, the Ricky program. My premise was kind of make the case for cats, because I'm a dog person. And he said, well, I make the case for both. And so we talked about both and the beauty of both. And of course, he went off on everything. Much of it I will have to censor some of the stuff. The phrase he used for a bullfighter. I said, I'll choose the bull for some sequined boop with a tiny knife. I'll choose the bull for him. And
yeah, I remember his quote about that, and he it's interesting, isn't it? Because he's a good example of someone who, he's been through the BBC thing, but he's unshackled himself, shall we say?
But he said something that I completely, and I know you'll completely understand, and everybody who's with us at the moment will completely understand. I flick through the papers in the morning and I see, oh God, not that. Oh God, not that. Not another thing. And you see it on social media and think, I didn't even, nearly swore. You think, I didn't even know that was a thing. Jesus. Oh my God. And you can see a photograph and it can just haunt you. And I've seen photographs. I'm preaching to the choir. I know you know this better than most people because of the stuff you've done. But you can see one image, one photograph can haunt you forever, can't it? And you can never unsee it. Never
unsee it.
The one which really, in some ways, changed. It was one of the things that really got me campaigning on Ivory, although it wasn't directly to do with Ivory. We were off on a whole trail of meetings and with Will and with Zach Goldsmith and campaigning was that iconic picture now, I think, in the palm oil plantation of the family of 4, 3 dead elephants, a mother and 2 aunties, and the baby elephant, which was eventually rescued and taken to some sort of a zoo place or whatever, was basically crying, trying to wake his mother up. Do you remember that photograph?
Very well, yeah.
Yeah, that particular, it's one of the strongest, most powerful, potent images I've ever seen of our callous destruction of the natural world.
Yeah,
on every level. Our misunderstanding, our complete lack of understanding of the intelligence and empathy and sentience of animals, which was still, our understanding is still so superficial. The predation of the environment, the greed of capitalism, and there's a whole lot of more stuff in there. Everything was in that photograph.
Yeah, it as you say, and we've talked about this with a number of guests in the past, that you can't unsee it. We spoke with Peter Egan about this very subject. We spoke with Will, that you mentioned, Will Travers, guys from
great man.
Absolutely wonderful human beings, and thank God. And by the way, you're in the same category, my friend, but your humility won't appreciate me saying that, but it's true. And we spoke very directly about it, especially with Peter. And you've got to find a way to. You've got to find your. Obviously, you've obviously got a very effective mechanism, because you've got a job to do. Well, in terms of not in terms of how much it affects you and how much it impacts you emotionally and spiritually and for the long term, but in terms of your ability to get on the microphone and tell the news to the people. after having been impacted by it in that way.
Yeah, there's a
And
switch.
because you mentioned Ricky and his talk of bullfighting and the sequined bleeps.
Yeah.
One of the images that I'll never forget and that I can't unsee, which actually broke me. It was one of the days that I had. I remember posting on Facebook a couple of days later just to acknowledge the pain that I feel, because I think there's a power in that as well. I think that people sometimes need to hear that it's not just them. That we're all, if we're empaths, and if we have compassion and we care, that we have our dark days. And I think that's important to acknowledge. And I saw a photograph which was, the bullfighting industry as we know it is horrendous enough as it is. But in this particular image was a horse that was being gored by a bull in the bullfighting ring. And it came accompanied with an explanation that when farmers, anyone using a horse, again, there's another problem right there. The horse is being exploited throughout its life as well. But at the end of its life, one of the ways they can make some money, like selling it to the dog meat man, is to sell it to the bullfighting industry, because they'll actually use the horses. They dull their hearing and their eyesight, so they blinker them, and they put Vaseline and cotton wool in their ears so they can't see or hear, can't evade a threat. And then they cover them in this kind of very, almost like the egg box sound absorber that you see in a sound studio. They just drape some of that over them like a saddle, and then they put them in the ring with the bull, who's riled up and ready to kill because of what they've done to the bull. And the bull takes the horse out first, and that's designed in the same way as the warm-up act in a comedy show. It's designed to get the crowd going before the bullfighter comes out, the matador. So they're literally killing horses in front of a cheering audience. And I remember seeing that image, and that put me into a dark place for a couple of days, and I'll never understand that. So,
I know exactly what you mean. And what disturbs me about it, the audience that are enjoying it, and what disturbs me about it, when you see those photographs and those disgusting, appalling kind of, Thai zoo entertainment complexes, and you see two orangutans dressed up to box with each other, or an elephant dancing or something.
Yeah.
And you see kids and families and, cheering it and stuff like that. It's that level of ignorance. Now, I think that level of ignorance is something that we can take on and we can improve, and it has been improving, because I'm sure if you look over the last 20, 30, 40 years, it's been like that here. We've had it here, we've moved on. And I think that the pet ownership is much more prevalent over there. That helps. I think even somebody told me that the anthropomorphism of Disney movies helps, seeing animals in a different way. And I think things are changing. I think those families are reachable.
I agree.
And there will be a time that you can explain that. They're not the cruel ones. They're being exploited as much as anyone, really, And I think that's the point when people say, "Oh, why didn't you get this upset about about humans and stuff?" Well, this is about humans, because when you see something like bullfighting, or humans taking a bit of ivory, slicing an elephant's face off for a bit of ivory for a ivory phone cover or something, it's completely about them, the animals, and the cruelty, destruction of nature. It's their planet too, but it's also about us. We're weeping for us. Our hearts are breaking for us, for our species, that we can do that we can be the worst species of all. We flew to the moon. We wrote Shakespeare. We made Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. We wrote T.S. Eliot, and I'm not a fan of T.S. Eliot. It was the only one I could think of. We painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. We've done beautiful, remarkable, incredible things as a species, and yet we can do that. And that's what I weep. I weep for us. I weep because we're better than that. We are a whole lot better than that. So that's what disgusts me. I'm disgusted with us, and I don't like being. It's like an extreme disappointment in what we're capable of, and of our own species. And I think that's why it hits. It's like that's what it is. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, and I've actually I heard you again. I heard you talking. One of the things I love about you is I've introduced you at some of the things that you've spoken at, and which I was like emceeing or whatever you'd call it. But the thing is, I can't remember which of the causes it was this was particularly about, and that is indicative of the fact that you stand for all of the injustice towards it. It's not about a specific species. It's not like, oh, I love elephants, I'll stand up for them, but sod the rest. It could be the anti-fox hunting, it could be the banned trophy hunting, it could be elephants one day, it could be rhino the next, lions, dogs, cats, everything. It's wonderful. But at one of those protests, I heard you speak very, very. You gave a really impassioned speech. In fact, I'll tell you what it was. It was the ivory. It was back in the day before we won this victory over the ivory trade recently. And you were speaking about exactly what you just touched upon now. You were referring to it as a crime against humanity. It wasn't just a crime against elephants, it's a crime against humanity. And as you just rightly said, it is exactly that. We're so far disconnected from what we could be, the best version of ourselves that achieve all the things that you just listed and uncountable more. And yet we carry out these acts of utter barbarism and violence and waste. So
beyond any other species. That's the point. But I would say that I think when people say, "Oh, for goodness sake, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that?" I said, "What about this and what about that? Get things in perspective." And I say, well, look, for humanity, there is no nobler mission. There is no greater or more important calling than to save another species.
I wholeheartedly agree. And once again, it's beautifully put, but coming from you, and the reason I say, let me quantify what I mean by that. When I say coming from you, it's, I think, an all the more powerful statement. And the reason I say that is because, as we've discussed, you are faced with the realities of the news every single day, because it's your job to absorb it and then to tell us what it is. So the injustices that people suffer as well. You know it better than most people. But also, coming from you, it's more powerful because of the fact that, it's the simple answer to that question when someone says, well, why are you focused on this and why and not that? And the answer I have for those people is, well, why can't we do both? And you do. You do so much for people. The reason you're Nicky Campbell OBE is for your services to children as an ambassador for Adoption UK. So you're a guy that absolutely stands up for people and for the most vulnerable, and yet you still see the importance of standing up for animals as well.
Well, this is services to children. Do you want your grandchildren not to have this world? Do you want your grandchildren not to have these incredible animals, these incredible moments, that preternatural, that almost, it's spiritual without the God. It's the spiritual moments that defy description with animals, and seeing animals even in an amazing film, and just sitting back in awe and sitting back in wonder. The only thing that troubles me a bit is I think there's quite a lot that I love animals. I always have, as long as I can remember, been fascinated by animals and adored animals. And I can't understand why more people. I've got a moderate to reasonable profile, but people with a high profile. I can't understand why more people don't step up and do something about this. And there's great people like you and Will and Ricky's are shining, and Peter Regan, they're shining examples, but I don't get it. Like when we did that Ivory March, the first one, I remember thinking, what elephants mean to every single kid's picture book has E is for elephant. Elephants are iconic species, amazing species. We now know more about them and more about them, how intelligent they are, how sensitive, how they mourn, how they grieve, how they weep, how they love, how they play practical jokes on each other. We should be going, my God, this is happening to them. 40,000 a year getting with a head sliced off, and orphans and all this just for little trinkets. The worst, most grotesque manifestation of human cupidity and greed. Why is this? This is a great turnout. There's hundreds of people here, but why is this demonstration not stretching all the way to Marble Arch? Why is this demonstration not stretching right over Westminster Bridge, right down there, right the other side? Why? Because we're complacent. I think there's a complacency about what is happening in the world, and I can't understand it. I know the celebs on Twitter who do a lot, and there's others who care, but I can't understand anyone who doesn't particularly give a shit. I don't understand that.
And a lot of them, it's not even just the animals. A lot of them don't have a cause at all.
No,
it's not. It's not even that they're not focused on animals because they're misguidedly thinking they can only focus on people. They're not even doing that. It's one of my pet hates. I find it absolutely abhorrent that people who have the privilege of a profile and the lifestyle that comes along with it, it's like, and goodness knows it shouldn't have to be enforced. But how do they not have a cause? But then again, this is why we love you so much, and this is why we have to fly the flag and see the fact that we can. And again, this is another one of the beautiful things. In fact, I just saw a wonderful comment come in from Denise Dresner, who says, you might be able to see on your screen now, Nicky. There's an impact that is tangible and measurable. That's and actually beyond that,
Denise has been a great force for
absolutely running the whole cause with the global march, and along with Marie, and you guys are awesome, and thank you for what you do. And I think it's just astounding that people don't get involved, but where people do get involved and have got involved, and you've been involved, and you ended that beautiful speech that Denise is talking about by expressing very, very clearly that we will win. And by the way, you were right, of course, because that battle has now been won. Only I think in the last 2-3 weeks we've actually finally got past that. Yeah, the appeal being dismissed. And
the antique trade were appealing. That's not the way I would describe them, but there we are.
Yeah, well put, very well put. And thankfully it was thrown out as it should have been. But one of the things that I'd love to turn this to, because we've talked often on this broadcast before about the fact that we have to, as you and I have just done, we have to immerse ourselves in some abject darkness, because in order to address these problems, we have to know them. We have to understand what's happening, and there's only one way to do that: is to see those pictures. It's to know the problems and to know the issues and to know the cruelty and barbarism that's happening, so we can stop it. But the great thing is that we are stopping it, and the ivory trade is just one example. But I know that you're a fellow patron of the Born Free Foundation, and through Born Free and our conversations with Will and Virginia in recent weeks on this series, we've heard about all the victories over the decades. So you just talked about the use of animals in circuses, and thank goodness that's not something that we have to endure in this country. And you talked about the way that those families who go and cheer for that kind of stuff that's something that's salvageable, and it has been. It's proven to be, because no family here is going to a circus to watch animals. Now, it might be because they can't, and perhaps if they could, they would. But enough people find it abhorrent enough that it no longer exists in this country, except I think there might be that one traveling circus left that's found some loophole, but I don't know if that's even the case anymore. But if it was one at all, it was just one. But
the wrong side of history, yeah. But also there's the elephant riding business. When Monty Don rode his elephant in that gardens program in India, and they came from they came from a dreadful, cruel place.
Yeah.
Those elephants.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not speaking in general. I mean, the particular Amber Fort, was it, that the elephants came from? And I went to the BBC and I said, this is unacceptable for the BBC in this day and age. I had to bump into the Director General, Tony Hall, at the time, and said, why are we doing? Is that acceptable? Well, we should be better than that. And he said, oh yeah, we've had a lot of letters from animal campaigns and animal advocates, and I don't think we should dismiss them at all, and stuff like that. And so, as I pressed that one, because I don't think the BBC should be doing that, and I think there's now new policies in place that they wouldn't do that. Sometimes slips through the net from an independent production company or something. But I think that is the policy now that we now realise. And because Monty doesn't get it. He was kicking up because we had it taken off the iPlayer.
Yeah, I remember.
Episode. Yeah, Monty doesn't get it. He was kicking off about it. He was kicking against it. He was being peevish. Well, I don't know why he was taking it off the iPad. You know, maybe he was just digging in. Hey, Monty. So maybe he was. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he does get it, or maybe it was a matter of pride. But it's pretty dispiriting when somebody as intelligent, and much loved and popular as Monty doesn't actually say, you know what? I now get it. I now know what goes into it.
Absolutely.
And I was wrong. I don't know why.
And what a powerful message that would be coming from him, having done that, and so many people having seen it. What a powerful message, and what a perfect platform that would be for him to do that. And somehow something, perhaps ego, perhaps something else, gets in the way, as you say, and prevents him from acknowledging it or admitting it or whatever. But the elephant riding subject is one that came up in conversation with Peter Egan as well. And it's and one of my guests in the future will be Sangeeta Iyer, who is the founder of Voice for Asian Elephant Society, who I'm a proud patron for. But I know that you are also a supporter of Save the Asian Elephant. I've seen you speaking for them and lending your support. And you talk about the crushing. In fact, what I remember very well as is you speaking out when the Monty Don thing went out. And I know that you were as vocal, in fact, I think more vocal than anybody, in your objection to that. And I remember it well. And you said, whatever next? Are we going to be showing dolphin shows on the BBC? And it's for that reason that I'm so grateful to you that you're using that. And you even started out by saying that you've got to be careful with impartiality working for the BBC. But thank goodness for you standing up to them at that point and saying, this isn't cool.
You can't write every letter. You can't make every. Sometimes you see things that are going on. You do what you can. But ITV, to be credit ITV and people there. If you do know people, they had a weather forecast thing. I mean, I think there was an advert going into it, what they call a bumper, going into the actual weather forecast with a dolphinarium, dolphins at dolphin. And I rang up one of the people I knew there, Sue, quite a high up, and I said, Sue, I don't think we should be doing that in this day and age because those things are on the way out, and we're post Blackfish now. And she said, "Oh yeah, how did that one slip through?" And then it's off, So sometimes these are they're complicated organizations, and they're like a lattice work. There's lots of things can slip through, and so that happens. But sometimes when you actually point it out to people, as we did with the Monty Don business, and as we did with that particular situation, and also I got something pulled from CBeebies or Children's TV, the young one. CBeebies is the young one, or what's it, the older one? I can't remember. Children's program, and there was a trip to a dolphin show there. But then recently on Homes Under the Hammer Down Under, Move to Australia, Get a Better Life, one of those programs. Right. They had a dolphin trainer in that program, and I emailed and stuff doesn't get through, whatever, But we've had a few signal successes on the way through, But I think people are catching up with it, and people get it more and more. If you'd said to somebody 5 years ago, you shouldn't be doing an elephant ride, they would say, well, why not? But now, as Ricky was saying to me the other night, the amazing thing has been social media.
Very powerful thing, isn't it? So it's a game changer. Used in the right way. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people use it at this stage in their life just for pouting selfies. And we hope that they'll evolve beyond that and use it for something good. But you're right. We have literally in the palm of our hand, we have the power to change anything and everything we put our minds to because of social media.
Or a selfie. We're doing one. There's a pouting selfie. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hang on. Surely I have to have one as well then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's all a bit one-sided.
We can change. We should tweet each other with them.
Yeah, we will. Hang on.
Yeah.
I'm just pointing at my bathroom. I need to spin the camera around.
You got to spin it round. Yeah. You got it?
Yeah, I think so. No, hang on. That's a video.
I know. I'm always doing that.
I don't know what I'm doing. There we are. Got it. So interestingly enough, Nicky, you've mentioned, and by the way, guys, this is absolutely not rehearsed. This is not rehearsed. We haven't. This isn't scripted, as I think you can gather. This is a very organic conversation. But Nicky, you've mentioned in passing just a little earlier on the trophy hunting issue and Dominic Dyer. So Dominic very kindly Dominic's watching. I know that for a fact because he just put a very complimentary comment, which I'll see if I can find again and put back up on screen. And while you're reading that, oh, here we go. Here it is. Very, very nice comment from Dominic. So you guys very well, many of you will know Dominic, an incredibly powerful voice for animals and a tireless campaigner, CEO of the Badger Trust and a policy advisor to Born Free Foundation, among many other things, an author. I'm very happy to tell you, will be my guest exactly 1 week from, what day is it, Nicky? Sunday.
He's a good talker.
He's a great talker. It's Sunday. He's going to be on Saturday. He's going to be my guest on Saturday, the 13th, at 7 p.m. So please join me for that. Dominic, as anyone who's heard him speak, in fact, I know you guys have both spoken often at the same events, which comes back around before I get on to my other guest who's going to be joining me on Tuesday, comes back around to the craziness of the number of times I've been to an event where it's you, Peter Egan, Dom Dyer, Will Travers.
Why isn't it more? Why isn't it more people?
Where are the rest of them? Where are the rest of them? There's so few. Got to give James Cosmo a shout though, because he does his fair bit and he's a busy man and he's he's often in Los Angeles. But James Cosmo, who you guys will know, if you don't know who he is, you'd certainly know his face. He was Ewan McGregor's dad in Train Spotting. He was in Braveheart.
Yeah, great actor.
He's an amazing actor, and he's often speaking at these events. But there's so few, and there needs to be more. However, another hero of wildlife conservation, and again, this wasn't rehearsed, despite Nicky having mentioned Dominic Dyer.
Is Dom watching just now?
Dom's watching. Wow. Yeah.
What a force of nature Dom is.
What a force of nature, and one of the most powerful speakers at all of the events, who gets everyone riled up and behind the cause. And if they don't understand it before, they certainly understand it after he's spoken. And another great man of conservation who a lot of you guys will know, Mr. Eduardo Gonçalves, who is the founder of the campaign to ban trophy hunting. He will be my guest on Tuesday. He's a great man. He used to be the boss of the League Against Cruel Sports, of course, and now he's running, and the founder of as well, and running the campaign to ban trophy hunting. Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. So we've got the two people that you've indirectly or directly mentioned will be my next two guests.
What about India? You mentioned India, Asian elephants in India.
Yeah.
Is there a growing movement there of animal rights, animal welfare? Elephant understanding? Is that growing?
Yeah, it is, but it's a fight. It's a real fight. And Sangeeta Iyer, who I've just mentioned, who is the founder of Voice for Asian Elephant Society, she is, so we talk about the tirelessness of some activists and the force of nature, like Dom Dyer, and Sangeeta is that too. And she's also someone who feels everything. I know she feels everything, just in the way we've described. Sometimes these images that we see can break us. She's there on the ground. And not only is she dealing with what she sees and the brutality and the realities of that, but she's also dealing with a culture which doesn't take too kindly to a woman who actually, not just any old woman, but she's an Indian Canadian who lives in Toronto most of the time. And they don't take terribly kindly to being told what to do. So it's a political game that she has to maneuver her way into. It was their idea. It wasn't her idea. It was their idea. And she's cool with that. She doesn't mind them having.
There must be compassionate people there. Are there compassionate people in government on the ground? And who's
absolutely there are. And it's a very much a regional thing. So it depends on the province that we're talking about, or the state, so to speak. And in certain states, certain regions, the Forestry Commission, which is usually the guy that's in charge of the natural habitat and the animals within it, It's all about what he's like. It's all about what he believes in. And I've spoken on an Indian Mirror Now TV show, the news channel in India, which goes out to 800 million people. And I literally was a guest on that show arguing with the guy that shot Avni the lion. Sorry, the tiger. Avni the tiger was one of the most high profile cases in India in recent years, which again, in the same way as we're talking about some of these horrific things that we talk about, Cecil the lion, at least, and I know something else that you spoke up against very, very, very vocally and quickly, but at least these things shed light on the issues. And if there's any good that comes out of them, it's that. And the issue with Avni the tiger was absolutely horrendous. And there were tens of thousands of people in the street protesting the fact that she was being hunted, never mind killed. It was before she was even killed. They were protesting the fact that the Forestry Commission had commissioned her killing. So the answer to your question, Nicky, is absolutely there are tens of thousands, and I dare say millions of compassionate people. And as always, our greatest enemy is apathy. It's the apathy of those people, or even if apathy isn't an issue, it's the belief that they can't make a difference. Even if apathy wouldn't keep them in their seat, their belief that they can't make a difference will. And that's what we need to fight. And that's where someone like you is so powerful, because you get to so many people with one tweet, with one mention of something on a public platform, and people get the message that we can make a difference.
I've taken to not arguing with people though, because if you do, it is a waste of time. If you do this tweet about trophy hunting and somebody says, someone comes back and says, you don't know what you're talking about, or somebody comes back about, I saw the Faroe Isles whale slaughter, and somebody says, oh, well, what about you? You're hypocrites. Why do you know what you're talking about? I used to engage, and I used to try and calmly argue, and they just keep coming back. It's like nailing jelly to a wall. No one's going to say, oh yeah, actually, yeah, you're right. I get your point. Even though you want to make that point, because they're being stupid and they don't understand that basic point, and they don't. It's not worth it, because they're what we were talking about earlier on. Their philosophical position is so entrenched. Their upbringing, their culture,
right?
The blindness to it all is just so immovable. Sometimes it's just not worth it. It's the people. It's the people in the middle you need to go for. The people we're talking about, who go to these shows and love animals. They go to these shows because they love animals, and they don't understand that they shouldn't be loving animals doing that. There are people who are reachable, and I think social media is making a huge difference, because it's highlighting all these issues. We've come a long way in a short time. We've come a long way with SeaWorld, with dolphinariums. If I was, in the Western world, certainly, if I was investing and somebody said, if I was an amoral investor and somebody said, look, I'm going to open a string of dolphinariums in Florida, I think I could do right. So I'm not putting my money near that. Yeah. I'm not putting my money anywhere near that. That's on the way out. And that's just speaking from a strict, logical, common sense business angle.
Absolutely.
I'm going to get this traveling circus. We've got to have elephants and everything. I'm not investing in that. No, because the tide of history is completely in the other direction. So we have come a hell of a long way in a short time. What we just need to do is we need to concentrate all our minds and all our thoughts on saving the rest of the world. I once got this tweet saying, what right have we got to lecture African nations on ivory? They don't lecture us on badgers. And I said to the guy, 31 African nations have signed this document asking the European Union to have a ban on ivory. You do not know what you're talking about. So people come with all their own assumptions.
Absolutely. It's such a, as you said, it's a deeply entrenched philosophical starting point that they come from. And when you're in a conversation with them, I used to do what you just described previously doing, where you always calmly and often in written form, which gives you the advantage of appearing calm, even if you're not. Like you said about the swan thing, where I was writing what I knew would be the most effective and impactful, and remaining courteous where I just wanted to tear their heads off, because as you say, that they were supporting shooting a leopard to put it on their wall or whatever, or a rug on their floor. But what I realized very, very quickly about the vast majority of people who come at you with that kind of an argument is that they don't want to learn anything. They don't want to be educated about something. They don't want, their position couldn't be altered, even if you articulated yourself in the most perfect way, calmly and factually correctly. It wouldn't shift a thing. They would just move the goalposts. So it's a waste of time, waste of energy, and I gave up on that a long time ago. I don't engage with it.
But I've had people saying, "Oh, come on, Nicky. We went elephant riding and stuff like that. What's the problem with it?" And if you actually do cut, you can kind of sense actually this person might be thinking, because they're approaching you and asking a question. So if you then explain something or say, had a read of that, and I've had people say, "Oh my God, I had no idea." So I've had
absolutely
that as well. That's when it really does make a difference. One of the fascinating facts that I think Will Travers told me is that they did under the John Major government. You probably know this, you know all this stuff, but under the John Major government, they sent some scientific advisors in to try and work out the future of the dolphin area industry in this country, what size of pool should be required for the dolphins' requirements. And of course, they came up with a size which was ridiculous for anyone who knows dolphins should be in the ocean, but it was big. And because the scientists actually said, well, it should have this, and it should have that, and it should have that. So the Major government went back to the British Association of Dolphin Area. British Association of Dolphin Area, bad. So they went back to them. They went back to them and they said, this is what you got to do. This is the size of big pool you've got to have. Our scientists have said this. And they said, we can't afford that. They're completely economically unsustainable. We can't have pools that size.
Yeah.
So that's why there's none here.
And you wonder whether that was a scientific reality, or whether that they actually came up with that size for some actual scientific tangible.
They came up with a size that is ridiculous for anyone who thinks the dolphin should be in the ocean, but they came up with a size that was ridiculous and unsustainable for the people who had the dolphin ball juggling businesses. So it's quite an interesting little story, that, because it just shows you that even when conservative scientists who had no real thought for closing these businesses, thought they should be viable businesses and credible businesses, looked dispassionately at what a dolphin should need, came up with this answer, which we would think was callous, but it was not economic for the people who wanted to do it. Yeah. And unfortunately, commercial viability is their number one concern, over and above anything, including animal welfare. Same with zoos. People talk about the benefits of zoos and the impact they have on conservation, and ignore the fact that it has to be enforced upon them to contribute in that way. And so, we get into that obviously with Born Free quite frequently. But again, things are improving, and I think you're right. There's low hanging fruit in those people who genuinely are good people, who just they've had the wool pulled over their eyes, and of course that's how the whole system's designed. It's no wonder they've had the wool pulled over their eyes, because there's an enormous machine behind all of these things, including elephant back riding and whatever else it may be, hiding all the brutality and the gruesomeness from people, because they know perfectly well that they would pull out if they saw what was happening. I was that person to an extent, because I would have been, a few years ago, I didn't have I didn't know what was going on. A few years ago, I didn't understand the nature of a lot of stuff. Not from a callous point of view. I always loved animals. I just didn't know about it.
Right.
I'm just trying to think of I didn't like a lot of stuff instinctively, but I probably didn't particularly know that elephant riding was particularly bad. Maybe 10 years ago, I don't think I thought, it's what they do. They've got the mahout and the elephant, they've got a very special relationship, and it's incredible. And they do the washing in the river, and it's all good. Yeah, maybe that'd be. I wouldn't like to do it myself. It's too high up, but that's all kosher. Then you just look into it, and you see how disgusting it is.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's a matter of knowledge. That's where we come back to social media. It's actually a matter of explaining it to people. And I've sat down and explained a lot of things to people, and they've said, "Oh, actually, since you mentioned it, that's ridiculous." You know?
Absolutely. I'm delighted to tell you, as if by magic, and again, guys, this isn't rehearsed, but as we're speaking, Sangeeta Iyer, who I was just referring to, has just commented, I've just mentioned, Sangeeta, that you'll be a guest on a subsequent broadcast, and Nicky here has just been talking very passionately about the issue of elephant back riding in Asia, and I'm very happy to tell you he's a staunch supporter of the campaign to end it. And you must watch, if you've not been on from the beginning, Sangeeta, you must watch the rerun, because your ears were probably burning. And Maxwell, there he is. How's he doing?
He's fine. He's an old. Do you want to? Oh, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? Oh, a stretch. Stretch.
There we go. Look at him, Maxwell. Hey, buddy.
Hey.
Happy birthday. It's such a gorgeous boy. Nicky, my friend, I'm so grateful to you for spending some time with us. I realize that you're a busy man, and also I realize that you no doubt have an incredibly early start tomorrow morning, so I don't want to hold you up any longer, as much as I'd like to speak to you for the rest of the evening. And I know that the people watching would love to.
He's having a tickle now. Look, he's having a lovely tickle. There we are.
Look at him.
Yeah. I better go downstairs and have me rice and peas. There you are. The other thing. I know you're vegan. I'm a vegetarian, and I'm moving. And sometimes I have big kind of vegan periods, but it's something that I think about a lot. I think about that an awful lot, and I do that thing about but only organic, because I can afford organic. Only organic, only do this, only organic. And but it's not good enough, and I'm pretty self-flagellating about it. It's we're all kind of shifting in this house, all kind of shifting. But everyone, whether it be the person who sits in the show watching orangutan's box, or whether it be the person who went elephant riding and now realizes it's not acceptable, whether the person who went to a dolphin show and now saw blackfish and thought, that I never knew. We're all on a journey, aren't we?
We're as we've discussed.
So many of us are going in the right direction.
Yeah, we are, and on the subject of veganism, I'm with you 100%. We talked about this. In fact, again, Peter Egan and myself spoke about this on this very.
He's a wonderful advocate for veganism. Yeah,
he is a wonderful advocate, and he spoke of his shame for not doing it sooner, and I can relate to that entirely, because it's only just coming up to 4 years for me. And in fact, that puts me on podiums talking about animal conservation. That was me standing up saying, "Please help me save the lion. Please help me stop the exploitation of elephants," or whatever it was. And then I'd be eating a burger or whatever. And
did you become a vegetarian first?
No, well, actually, I think I was vegetarian for about 2 months, and then just went vegan. And I have to say that, people, I was just it was the same thing. It's the journey, as you said. It's this. I was a good guy. I wasn't a bad person. I just didn't see it that way at that point. And the most profound and significant thing that happened when I went vegan was the conscious shift that took place instantaneously. Absolutely immediately, I felt like a different person, and I, more importantly, didn't recognize the guy that I had been 2 minutes earlier, or for the course of my life up to that point. It was a very strange and beautiful shift that happened instantaneously. And by the way, if there's anything I can do to help in terms of your journey with veganism, you know where I am. And also, there's about 4,000 people have just said the same thing who will be happy to help you on the.
It's like. It's like finding Jesus. Hallelujah. So what was your what are you having tonight to eat?
Well, I'll show you because, and this isn't advertising, but I'm showing you this for a specific reason as well. So I will be having these. Now,
Ricky was saying to me the other night in our long chat, can I just mention, please watch out for the podcast, One of the Family.
God, of course. In fact, if you tell me where it is, I'll put a banner on the screen for you.
Yeah, well, I'll ask you to do it. Yeah, but it's maybe going out for the first time this week, but I'm going to put it out every 2 weeks.
Right.
We've got some good guests lined up.
Amazing.
Ricky did a great, and also I've written the music for it, and the family are in it, and it's just talking dogs. I did an interview I find so fascinating with Alexandra Horowitz, who's an American. She wrote To Be a Dog, how they think, how they smell, and is a New York Times bestseller. And I got in touch with her, and she said, "Sure, I'll do it." She's done that thing about what is a dog thinking, how do they see the world, talk about their smell. It's really fascinating. So doing that, and other people come on it sometime, when we're up and running. Great. And Ricky was saying, he was talking about veganism, and he said he's not quite all the way there. He'll have a glass of wine, which isn't a vegan, glass of wine.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he said I had a burger the other night, he said, and you would not have been able to taste the difference because the burger is all about, it's about ketchup, it's about the salad, it's about the bun, it's about the texture and stuff like that. Is that what that is then? Yeah,
it's one of the many, but in my opinion, that's the best one. So the documentary that I'm making, called Food for Thought, is explores all the driving forces behind the vegan phenomenon. And very briefly, one of them that we've discovered is the advent of meat replacement options. And Beyond Meat, we speak to the founder of Beyond Meat. I think one of the things that's indicative of just how incredible it is we talked about commercial viability of things and where the smart money's going these days and where the smart money's not going, in the case of Dolphin Area. But 3 of the investors in Beyond Meat are Leonardo DiCaprio, Bill Gates, and Richard Branson. And whatever you think of those individuals, they're not bad with money, any of them. They're pretty good with money, and they put money into Beyond Meat because they saw the potential of it. And I have served Beyond Meat burgers to, in fact, Leona Lewis. Leona's a vegan, and I was at a barbecue in Los Angeles at her place, and she served Beyond Meat burgers to everybody, including all her dancers from her backing dancers and stuff who aren't vegan. And she just served the burgers and didn't say a thing to anybody, and no one had a clue. Not one person had a clue that they weren't just straight out beef burgers. And it's 100% plant-based. And I've looked in their lab in Los Angeles under a microscope at the molecular structure and they use heat, cold, and pressure to alter the molecular structure of the plant proteins. One second. I'm coming! We won't keep him long, sorry.
I'll be dead in a couple of minutes. I had the shrill voice downstairs saying, "It's ready." So listen, what's that? What's it? What is it? What is it? Mushroom
11 different plant proteins. 11 different plant proteins. Yeah, and honestly, it looks like meat. It cooks and tastes like meat. So, and of course, there'd be people out there right now saying, "Well, I don't want that." Then it's if I'm a vegan, I don't want anything that reminds me of meat. That's fine. It's not for you. It's for the folks who need a gap bridging. It's for the folks who
like that texture. Like that burger.
You do want a burger. And as Ricky said, you wouldn't have a clue. You wouldn't have a clue.
The Linda McCartney meatballs are very good. I've had that.
They are, and so are the Linda McCartney. If you like the crispy aromatic duck that you get in a Chinese restaurant, that Linda McCartney does a duck, which I don't know how it's possible that it's not duck, but you could serve that to somebody and they wouldn't have a clue.
What's that? Finally, hold that thing up again. I'm going to order some. Hold it up.
Let me just grab it. Hold on.
This is not like an advert, but it's just Beyond Meat, right?
Yeah. Grab a photo of the screen if you like.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. Listen, I've had such a nice time. Thank you so much for. Got it. Thank you so much for asking me on. And it's amazing to think people are watching, isn't it, while we're doing this.
It's amazing what? Sorry, I just dropped my Beyond.
People are watching while we do this all over. It's wonderful.
No, Nicky, no one's watching. This is just a call between you and me. I made the rest of it.
That's even better. You take care, and thank you very much, everyone. And thanks for inviting. I hope I can come on again in some time.
You'll always be welcome. It's an absolute pleasure, and thank you, brother, for being on this evening. And we'll see you soon.
Yeah, take care, everyone.
Look after yourselves.
Have a
Thanks,
good week.
guys. Join us Tuesday at 7 p.m. Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye, guys.